Hey, what's up? Let's talk about object-oriented programming. So, what's object-oriented programming? Basically, as its name says, object-oriented programming is a programming about objects or with objects, using objects. As an object can be everything, like a pen, a notebook, so everything. And what do we do with these objects? We use it. We give any parameters to this object. For example, an object pen, its size, its parameter size would be, let's say, 15 centimeters, and for the object notebook, its size or shape would be a rectangle. So the idea and the concept is very, very simple. It is about creating and using objects. And what's the difference between all non-object oriented programming and object oriented programming? The difference is we try to encapsulate everything in objects. For example, if you have a name, a basic name, in all programming languages we might just use a string for that purpose. But nowadays we can create our own class called a name, which will encapsulate a string and some functions such as checking if that name is valid, if it starts with the uppercase, and so on. So objects is basically types which are a bit more complex and upgraded. For example, a type string is a character, is a sequence of characters, and it has some functionalities. For example, it has a parameter of its length. You can learn about its length by calling a function dot length, for example, in C++, and the same with the type integer. It represents an integer value, a number, and the same with an object. Objects represent everything, not only strings or integer, but everything. Let's take an example of toys. Let's say we want to program toys, and we need an object. And let's have an example of toys. So here I have two toys, and they have different parameters, and we will represent those toys as an objects in programming. So let's say this object has a name, a type. For example, its name would be a Totoro, and its type would be furry, and its weight would be, let's say, 0.3 kilograms. And we have almost the same thing here, the same object, toy, but it has different weight, for example 0.5 kilograms, and different type, plastic, and also it has it has the same name, Totoro. So we can create, since those two objects share the same name, we can create an object for all Totoros which have different parameters. Yeah, let's try to program it and let's see it in practice. Called Totoro, our class called Totoro. So since we have a shared name, then it would be better to just call our class Totoro. And what the Totoro has is the weight, and what else? Type. And let's represent the type in strings. I have a type string, and that's it. And now we can easily create two Totoros. First Totoro, let's call it, which will give a name of good Totoro, and which will have 0.3 kilograms, and and it will have a type of and the second Totoro will be best Totoro, let's say, and it will have 0.5. 0.5. Oh, since we're using floating numbers, then we can change it integer to double, and here we can use a plastic. Yeah, that's it. So that's about object-oriented programming. Now we can do whatever we want with those objects. For example, we can output those numbers, and before doing something with those objects, let's first create a constructor which will receive those parameters when creating an object, and will initialize it. Given weight and given string, given type, and given weight will be equal to weight, given type, I mistook, it will be weight equal to given weight, and type be equal to given type. That's it. And what can we do with those objects? The first simple thing that we can do with objects is just output the parameters, and let's try to output a good Totoro, and let's have a function for output. Let's say output function, which is gonna take a Totoro as an Totoro, any Totoro. Just notice that we are taking any Totoro, not good Totoro, not best Totoro, but any Totoro, and we're gonna output its weight, which will be weight, and its type. Yeah, so we can output function good, and output function best, and just so that we know which Totoro we are outputting, we can just write here good, and here best. Best. Yeah, so that's it. So the point is that we have one function for any Totoros, which have very different parameters, which have a weight of 100 kilograms, which for example might be produced by some metal or with a golden Totoro, any Totoros. And this function can handle any type of Totoros and output its parameter, which is super cool. We are not creating different functions for different Totoros, not all type and weight, but they can vary and can be very different. And for example, if we output this, if we run this, yeah, it takes too long. Yeah, so yeah, finally, a good Totoro weighs 0.3 kilograms and has type of fur. Best Totoro has a weight of 0.5 kilograms and type of plastic. That's a like most important point of the objects. We just need to it enables us to handle many different objects with just one class, one abstraction. That's it. I hope it was very useful. I hope you will use it, and hope to see you again. And one last question for you: which Totoro you like more?